Yeah, I don't remember him mentioning a specific show, but he did say that we have a television agreement to do a show about it, and that's ready to go as soon as after it breaks. I don't think it's been done yet, but we have an agreement to do it. So right after it breaks, there's going to be this television thing about it. I heard, if I remember correctly, he did say that, but he didn't mention which show. For him personally, he felt very strongly that this was if you could say there was an overall purpose, at least in his mind, is to educate the public and to educate others. And he it's not hard disclosure. It's not disclosure with a capital D. We talked all about this. We talked all about the fact that it is soft disclosure, at least in his mind, that he is hoping that it snowballs and there is both enough public attention and media attention that it goes before Congress and that they get involved and look at it the way they should have all along. And I can tell you this, Grant, it was clear to me what drives Jim Semivan in great part is his personal abduction experience, that he knows it's real, he knows beings are real, and he stated that. He stated that. And I know that that's a huge part of what drives him and his personal desire to have the truth be known, to have the public be educated, and to have it eventually, as he said, you know, to go to Congress and to have them dig into this the way they should have. And so it's like they're having to go back and do what should have happened in the, you know, 40s and 50s. Well, no, that was my terminology. I think he mentioned in context that they're going, that for the same reason, Grant, that you quote, what was it, Bill Clinton had said, that it's got to go through private industry.
Yeah, I can't do it, but you can.
Yeah, he was kind of referencing that I don't know that he quoted that exactly. He may have, I don't remember exactly, but we talked for quite a while about why this has got to go through private industry to bring this about. It's deliberately giving the government plausible deniability. And I brought up, in that context, I brought up that Hal Puthoff had said with George Knapp on Coast to Coast that George Knapp said, was this green lighted? Hal said yes, and then he kind of paused and said green lighted. Yes, green lighted. And I think he even said it twice to my memory. So I said, well, Hal said that this was green lighted, and he said yes, green lighted. And I said, higher up at the Pentagon, yes. Now I didn't ask him who or what, and I dropped the ball there, everyone, and I can go back to him and ask him. And one thing that kept being very clear throughout this conversation is that this was an open communication, and we would talk again, and there would be other opportunities. So, and sometimes I just was so caught up in something he was saying, I did not think every time to ask the next, what would be, you know, seemingly the question that everyone would want asked or something. So I didn't say who at the Pentagon, but he did say green lighted. At least I caught him saying that. I'm not reading a lot into that. I remember him saying it. And that additionally, he said, yes, you know, that this is like a workaround to go through private industry to give the government plausible deniability. Well, and I think you know this is one of those things, so you can clarify me, because I know it matches something I've heard you say and we've talked about in the last couple of days, which is, yes, DeLong got invited from someone he knew to go to the company picnic, that whole story. There he met these high-level generals and other officials with Lockheed Skunk Works, okay? Lockheed Skunk Works and Bigelow Aerospace are in projects together. That was clarified in case there was doubt in anyone's mind. That got clarified repeatedly in this conversation, that they are working on stuff together. He even named the division and the sub-company that's doing it, and I don't remember the name. And but I think I've heard other people say it, so I apologize, but it matched what I heard other people say. So if you know Grant, that's probably one of the things you're correct on. But there's this, group between them, between Bigelow and Lockheed. And so when these guys met DeLong and realized, he was a young guy with a marketing firm, and there could be a marketing project and a public relations deal going on here with information, so therefore that information was shared by Lockheed and Bigelow Aerospace, and thus with Bigelow became the other guys involved, like Hal and etc. Now he mentioned names repeatedly, which was another kind of surprise to me, that he was so quick to mention everybody's names. And if there were, say, 30 names mentioned in 2.5 hours, 25 of them I knew, I mean, and it confirmed everything we've been saying about this. The subgroup doing the consciousness research and all their names came up, so that gets into, Hal, John Alexander, Gary Nolan, Kit Green, etc. Just all parts came out, and again, it was everything we've been talking about confirmed. There's a couple major takeaways for me from this meeting, and one was that he was coming out with all this stuff that just confirmed everything you've been saying. Was remarkable, and the facts, and except for little tiny details, which he said he would give me an opportunity to correct you on if you were wrong on some minor details, like the fact that he never, had briefed the president, according to him. So now, you guys, I want you to know, he was very personable, very friendly. His wife was charming. They were both charming. I enjoyed the conversation. But I jokingly have said to a couple of people, I didn't drink the Kool-Aid, but I did sip it. I did taste it. And I kept feeling that at times he considered that his views might be at odds with some of the other people involved at times. One of the things that had come up was, I think he asked me my concerns, and I said, well, I think I'm speaking for ufology here, when both DeLong's kind of evil alien, beliefs combined with the weaponization of space, and certainly the recent interview of George Knapp interviewing Luis Elizondo, which seemed to be very tilted towards a military buildup, weaponization of space, beat out the other countries, beat them to the punch. I don't mean that in a beat them up way. I mean just be ahead of them with the technology, and he knew that was there, and I think what kind of chose to go along with that somewhat. I'm interjecting here. He didn't say these words, but my feeling was to appease the other people involved. And but his view was, as I said earlier, so much about educating the public. He kept expressing to me that he said the group can disagree, and the group is not just, by the way, the group is not just the 10 or 12 people on their board for To the Stars Academy. It's the other group, which you and I know of as the working group, but he kept just saying the other group. He didn't call them the working group, he said the other group, but the people doing the abduction related work and the mind, and this is on their website, the mind machine interface and the consciousness work and the DNA work, etc. So and then so it's those individuals, which are additional names. It's the people at Lockheed and Bigelow Aerospace, and the generals. So it's actually he may have said so many odd people. I remember it sounding like 40 odd or 50 odd, a bigger group. So of which the public face was to the stars. Decisions as a group, or at least majority of the core group. I don't know how big the core group is, but certainly I'll say this: it was clear that he meant to the Stars Academy, as an example. So he said, I'm not the decision maker. We make decisions together, because I kept referring to him as the director or the vice president or whatever. And he said, well, yes, that's my position, but he said, I just help implement things. We make decisions as a group. And he said, so I'm not a sole decision maker. And I told him repeatedly, I was glad that he was a part of this, because it sounded like he was a buffer against some of the things that at least ufology might might kind of label as somewhat negative, and like I said, things about, yes, they want to build the technology and build, advanced spaceships, and of course, you guys, the funding's not going to come from, $2 million from independent investors. They know that this has to go to Congress, and of course, there's a desire to have contracts awarded to Bigelow and Lockheed and their other associates, for technology development, and so that's a big part. But he was stressing to me, well, there are those sub-agendas. The main agenda is about the education. The main agenda is to bring out the truth. The main, so he was stressing that, and he certainly believed it. Whether he was saying it to me to get me to believe it, or he was just stressing what he was choosing to believe, it almost doesn't matter. He said it. Well, the plausible deniability part of deflecting away from the government, from the White House, kind of a thing, and to have it be as if it's coming from private industry was significant, and they felt was the only way to accomplish this. And as we talked about it, I agreed with that. That is probably the only way, to accomplish this. And if it's going to build towards disclosure, I ended up telling him, Grant, I've been saying this all along, and when I said this, he agreed with me. So I want everyone to know he didn't use these words, I did, but when I said it, he agreed. I said, first off, I know that the truth has a consciousness to it, and I'm a big believer in the phrase, the truth will out. It is a Shakespeare quote, obviously, and was used in one of the series ends of the end of the major first ending of the series, The X-Files, I guess. But I'm a big believer in that the truth will out, and that there is a consciousness to truth, and truth wants to be known. Secondly, and he fully agreed. And then I said, secondly, I said, I don't think it's going to be disclosure because of you guys. I think if the media does its job, and this grows in attention with them releasing each piece. They've got another piece of footage, and then more footage, and then more footage. Eventually, and we talked about all this, so this is from him, and more footage, and then documentation, and then the metal, and the results of the metal. And he had said, to cause a media storm, a media frenzy, he said if it was up to us, it would come out quicker. But there's so many factors, everything from these guys all busy themselves to they're wanting to do their homework before presenting each piece, so they have the evidence and experts and stuff in place so it floats and isn't shot down. And then additionally, the media needing to get on board when right now this isn't their primary story. They're dealing with some major political stories, and that they have major political agendas. Yes, yeah. There was a mention to parts that throughout the years, even stuff that had come out that the media didn't follow up on, and he said, and we've learned how to get their attention, you know, what we need to say to keep their attention, and what works. Here, this is, I wrote this down. Let me see. Yeah, we're going to go with what works, you know, he said, and what works is the things that they have an interest in it, and to stay away from certain subject matters that would make them drop it right away. Everyone says, why aren't they saying aliens? Why aren't they saying aliens? He says, because we've learned they don't want to run with that. That's not what they want to hear right now. And he said, so if we got to talk gun camera footage, and then we have to talk documentation, and then we have to talk hardware, well, that's what we're going to do. He said, that will come up. And of course, it'll naturally evolve. But he said, for right now, he said, if we went with that right now, we'd be the laughing stock, and those newspapers and those major news outlets wouldn't run with it. So he said, we're learning as we go what works, and we're, you know, editing and resubmitting per, you know, what interests them. And he said, again, it's called whatever works. You know, we're putting out there what they're willing to run with, and he said it's also linked to the idea of the plausible deniability, and to build this story over time so it becomes more and more acceptable. And he said you start right off with that and no one wants to hear it, or they instantly go to the giggle factor and the ridicule factor, and he said we have to build it for acceptability. Yeah, oh, his wife interjected repeatedly throughout everything. There were a couple times, it was very cute. There were a couple times he was guarded in what he said to me, and she'd go, oh, come on, honey, just tell her. And she'd spur him on, he'd go, okay. It was very cute. He was a sweetheart, and she was charming. So he said, Pandolfi, he said, Pandolfi's trying to just deflect attention away from him and the things that he's doing. He always plays this really mysterious game, and to take what he says with a grain of salt. But he said, you know, he's always trying to deflect from anyone from this leading to him. So he's very well aware of everything going on and purposefully deflecting away from it so it doesn't come back to him. I mean, and there's more we can go over in everything I've said. I just was referring to some notes there. But the big thing, an hour and a half into the conversation, as we're going on and kind of, you know, we'd kind of covered everything, and we'd go all into my beliefs and his beliefs. Oh, and I didn't finish what I was just saying, which is not only the truth will out, but that I said it won't be disclosure because of you guys. It'll be disclosure in spite of you guys. And he said exactly, he said, I hope you're right. He actually looked at me point blank and said, I hope you're right. And because he would like this to go to Congress. He emphasized that a couple times, for them to start really seriously looking into this and uncover what has been kept secret. And you had brought up before about constitutionality, and you know that for them to look into that and the secrecy of this. Now, but this is interesting because this then leads into what you just asked me, because an hour and a half in, out of the blue, and I did not expect this at all. I didn't know he knew this about me, but I'm not surprised given his background. As soon as he heard from our mutual friend that he should contact me, he obviously did his homework. And as well as I did my homework on him, I already knew a bunch, and I did a lot of internet research. Well, he obviously did the same thing on me. Because an hour and a half in, out of the blue, he says, can we change the subject? There's something I want to bring up. And he was really very serious. I said, sure. And I said, sure, what is it? And he said, I want to ask you about your MyLab research. And that just, I couldn't believe he went there. He said, I really want to ask you about your MyLab research.